Grab a 3-cube storage organizer from Walmart and start to assemble it based on the instructions. Cut some upholstery foam, then start to closely staple some fabric layered with batting to the top side of the organizer. Cut any excess material, then staple the material to the sides of the organizer. Add the upholstery foam and fit the material over the foam. Make sure to tuck, wrap, and staple the material around the foam on the other side of the organizer. Tightly staple all of the corners and the sides, and lastly staple the bottom of the sides.
I picked up an inexpensive woven rug at IKEA. I started by pulling the bins out of their storage area, and I'm going to lay the rug down flat and then put the bin on top to measure how much fabric I need. To attach the rug to the bin, I'm going to use hot glue. So I'm gluing it to the back, so the handle part of the bin is actually going to be on the back and this fabric is going to be on the other side. I'm going to wrap those sides of the rug around and secure it to the sides. Now I'm going to add a handle to this bin. So I'm going to poke a hole into the handle, one on each side, and stick the brad through. Punch a hole through the rug and through the storage bin, and then push that brad through. And then on the inside of the storage bin, I'm going to push the two ends of the brad down to secure it in place.
My daughter purchased a large television, and wouldn't you know it, her old TV stand was too small. All we really needed for this project was molding and an unfinished wooden top. I laid the board on top of the stand and measured to center it. Using my miter saw, I cut the molding to size. I pre-hammered finishing nails into the molding, added wood glue to the edge of the board, and hammered the molding into place. I continued to measure, glue, and nail molding to all three sides of the board. To secure the board to the old stand, I pre-drilled and added screws to the top, then filled the holes with wood fill. I also filled in the edges with wood fill. Once the wood fill was dry, I sanded it smooth. I applied one coat of a dark stain with polyurethane and allowed it to dry. Then I sanded using a fine grit sandpaper. To ensure the stand wouldn't fall over, I bought furniture straps. I measured and screwed one end of the strap to the TV stand, then measured and screwed the other end to the wall. Now the TV fits perfectly and my daughter can still use her old stand. I purchased the 3-cube storage unit and put it together in 10 minutes. Now for the bed frame. I painted two 1x12-inch pieces of pine to use at the sides of the frame. I needed something to elevate the mattress, so using 2x4s, I cut to size and used a Craig jig to make two U legs. I placed them at the head of the bed and in the middle of the bed. I laid a piece of 3/4-inch plywood on top of the U-legs and screwed them into the plywood. I placed a storage unit at the foot of the bed and screwed that into the plywood. The painted 1x12s were attached to the U-legs using brads. I then laid a 1x2 beside the plywood on the top and overhung the 1x12s and nailed them in place. Then I laid a 1x6 on top to hide the seam. At the foot of the bed, the storage unit wasn't as wide as the actual bed, and there were gaps on either side. Now that the bed frame was complete, it was time to make the headboard.
I have this small 24-inch wide sink that really doesn't allow me to fit much on its surface at all, so I ran to the hardware store and picked up some wood. Once I got home, I determined how high I wanted my shelf to be. I have a pretty high faucet, so I needed to make mine pretty tall. You'll adjust yours to the height that's appropriate for you. I cut my wood to the appropriate length. Then I simply placed the two pieces of wood together using an L bracket. I didn't want the rough edge of the wood to show on top of my shelf, so I made sure to attach the L bracket in a way that the rough edge stayed underneath the top part of the shelf. I set it into place and started playing around with how I wanted to organize my things on this new shelf. You could also, of course, finish this to your desired look. You could stain the wood or paint it or whatever goes great in your bathroom.
I used 2 tension rods for this brilliant storage solution. I placed them between my washing machine and wall, which is an awkward, unused space. I made sure they were both level, and then I got a piece of wood to fit on top. I trimmed another scrap piece of wood for the front, and I used a brad nailer to secure them together. I grabbed shelf liner from the dollar store and stuck it to the wood to make it look like one large thick board. I trimmed the edges and placed it on top of the tension rods, and now I have a solution for more storage in my laundry room that actually looks good. I hope this inspires you to make use of those awkward spaces and make these easy tension rod shelves.
Pick up a couple of bins and these barnwood boards at Walmart. These boards are already prepped and ready to go. We just need to remove the twine from the back. Now I want to add a little detail to this. So I'm going to use just a paper number stencil, and I'm going to add a stenciled number to the top of each board. To the bottom, I want to add a little knob. Now, if you're using thicker wood, you can absolutely drill a hole and use the screw that comes with these knobs. Since this is very thin wood, I'm just going to use some super glue to attach it. Now I want to place the board on the bin. The bin doesn't sit completely flat against the board, so I'm using some thick Gorilla mounting tape on the clear bin, and then I'm going to press the board on there really well. You can either set something heavy on top of this or use clamps to hold it in place for about 30 minutes until it cures. And I'm going to hide some craft supplies that don't really fit anywhere else. I have this beautiful clean look on the outside, and I can easily access everything I need when I pull these out. I hope this inspired you to grab some bins and use this creative way to hide some of your items.
I grabbed this towel rod for the best kitchen hack. I used a stud finder to locate the studs. I wanted to drill at least one end of the towel rack into the studs. I put one end of the towel rack on, placed the level on top, and marked where the other side of the towel rack needed to be so that the rod would be level. For this side, I used drywall anchors to ensure a strong hold. Then I grabbed some black shower curtain rings, placed them on the towel rack, and hung my favorite cutting boards and frying pan. Now I have modern kitchen decor that was so quick and easy.
Grab some pegboard hooks and shelves from your local dollar store and buy some inexpensive pegboards. Do you have leftover peel and stick wallpaper from wallpapering a wall or other project? Lay your wallpaper face down on a table and position the pegboards on the paper with a few inches of space between each pegboard. Outline each pegboard with a pencil and cut out each piece of wallpaper, including an additional inch outside the outline. With some sharp scissors, cut out the corners of the wallpaper. Peel the backing off the wallpaper and lay the pegboard face down on the sticky side of the paper. Press down firmly so you know the wallpaper is sticking. Wrap the outer edges of the wallpaper up and over the side edges of the pegboard. Take a screwdriver, pencil, or other poker-type object and poke holes through the wallpaper and into the pegboard holes. You can do this for feeling for the pegboard holes with your finger or by holding it up to the light to see the hole. Hang the pegboard with the hardware provided so it is secure on the wall. Line up with the wallpaper pattern on your wall with the covered pegboard. The hardest part is sometimes matching up the pattern on the wall, but once you find it, it is so fun to line it up and see the pegboard disappear into the matching pattern. Insert the pegboard hooks into the wallpapered pegboard to hold your keys, or hang a pegboard shelf to hold dryer sheets in your laundry room. Style with pretty home decor, or use to store functional items, or both. 2 small tabletop evergreen trees. Line up the trees bottom to bottom. Place some glue at connecting points of the trunks and hold until dry. Fluff out the branches of the trees on both sides. Take your sparkly picks and connect them to the center of the trees and arrange the berries into the branches of the trees. Take your hot glue gun and secure them in place with a little glue. Grab some ribbon in a coordinating pattern and tie a simple bow. Slide a piece of the wired evergreen strip through the back loop of the bow and tie the bow to the center of the swag. Take it a step further and glue your bottle brush, tree, and any other embellishment you like to the center of the swag. Hang your new swag vertically on your front door.
Head to Dollar Tree and pick up mini Christmas trees and ribbon. Take 2 mini trees, glue and zip tie the bases together, add red berries to the trees with hot glue, add a big fake bow with hot glue to cover the center. Take a basket and flip it upside down. Cut a small hole in the bottom, thread the mini tree through. Secure with glue and rope if needed to make sure it doesn't move. Add a burlap ribbon around the base of the tree. Take a mini tree and hot glue the base to the bottom of a square vase. Mix up plaster of Paris in a plastic cup. Follow the instructions on the container. Allow plenty of time to dry. Wrap the vase with snow, batting, or burlap. Add a burlap strand and Christmas ribbon with a bow to the front.
Begin with a Dollar Tree square wreath form. You will take some wire cutters and cut through the 3 wires at one corner. Then go to the opposite corner and cut through those 3 wires. Grab a Dollar Tree pool noodle and slide it into the curved part of your remaining frame. Use a sharp knife to trim the pool noodle to fit within the frame. You're going to use pipe cleaners to secure the pool noodle to the frame. Use 2 evergreen garlands to wrap around the frame and the pool noodle to cover up both of them. Take a Dollar Tree white Christmas tree, fluff the tree, and lay it along one side of your frame on top of the green garland. Using white pipe cleaners, wrap them around the tree and the pool noodle and frame. Now we get to decorate. I used silver ornaments from Dollar Tree and some silver branches. Now we have to cover up those pool noodle ends. Now it's time to hang them and display them. I used 1 command hook on each side just above my doorway entrance.
Beginning with the Dollar Tree Christmas tree. And the first step is to disassemble the tree entirely. Now that the tree is completely disassembled, I'm going to be using 3 of the 15-foot garlands. I am using the white branches from the original tree to measure out multiple branches at the same length from my garland. Take twine from the Dollar Tree and 3 of the branches to combine them into a fork type shape. Now that my branches are bundled together, I'm moving on to the next step of mixing together a combination of flocking powder and fake snow in a container. Once the branch is completely covered, dip or coat the branch in the flocking powder, and you're going to repeat this step many more times, and you're going to want to let the branches dry overnight. Take the original metal rod that was part of the original tree, some twine, and a few loose branches to create a bundle for the top of the tree. I'm simply adding to the bundle, wrapping with my twine around that metal rod, and continuing the process all the way down until I run out of branch bundles. Secure the bottom of the twine with a little hot glue. Use a popsicle stick, cut it in half. From there, take a plastic bowl, and I'm going to flip it upside down and hot glue the popsicle stick to the bottom part of the cup. I glued the base of the cup to the bottom of the bowl. Mix together plaster of Paris with water as directed on the package. You're going to pour the mixture and give it plenty of time to completely harden. Take a couple pieces of burlap, gather and wrap the burlap around the base to cover the bowl completely. Using a piece of rope from Dollar Tree, wrap it around to secure the burlap and tie it in a bow. head to Dollar Tree and pick up 2 paper towel holders, guide the centerpiece of the towel holder through the floral foam, begin adding florals to the base, stack the second paper towel holder directly on top and add more florals to it to cover the foam entirely. Take a strand of gems and attach to the top of the stacked paper towel holders. Attach it to the top of the paper towel holder base. There you have it, a cheap way to create your own easy holiday decoration for your home.
First, we're going to start with this 9-foot flocked garland. We're going to use some of this silver bay leaf and just work them right into the garland. Now we're going to work in some shatterproof ornaments, and we can start hot gluing these in place too. We'll just do one loop with a set of tails, and I'm just going to take that little pipe cleaner and wrap it around, and it just adds a nice little touch of ribbon. And look at how pretty this looks.
Take any glass vase or jar container that you have and layer the bottom with a couple of inches of greenery. Angle the ends of the greenery toward the outside of the glass. Next, grab your box of plastic wrap and start crumpling it into a bunch. But I did try to shape it into a sort of level disc. The third layer consists of fresh cranberries. Take a pitcher of water and pour over the top of all the layers. You can add a tea light to the top of the layers. This is a perfect holiday display centerpiece for anywhere in your home.
And for this, we're going to use a hula hoop, but I do want some larger bricks to hold my hoop in place. Figure out the placement of our trees. I usually like to start with my greenery first. Some moss on top of your green floral foam. But I'm going to be using cream, solo wood flowers in various different styles. Add this little touch of red. Oh my gosh, how pretty did this turn out?
Gather some oranges out of the refrigerator. We're first going to cut some short pieces of rosemary. Now we're going to place longer pieces of rosemary all around the bottom part of the tree. It's time to add our little cuties. And I'm putting the pointy end into the tree. Place about 12 to 15 little cuties inside the vase. I then am going to fill the vase with water. I always start with a base of greenery. Lastly, we're going to add our flowers. For our last project, I took oranges and dried them in a dehydrator. I'm just going to use a hot glue gun, glue the cinnamon stick to the middle of the dried grapefruit slice, add a piece of rosemary. I then take a wire, put it through the rind of the citrus, and twist it. Now it's time to attach these to the wreath. And there you have 3 great projects you can create out of fresh citrus.
Run to the dollar store and grab one of these hanging planters or hanging terrarium. Now you're going to go and fill your terrarium with some sand. Now let's go and place the people along with also some of the miniatures. But I think this arrangement is really cute and I do want a wintry look to it. Take some of these white stones that you can also go and purchase at the dollar store. Then I am going to take some of the fake snow and make it look like it's almost snowing there. And now I'm going to go and mix up some Elmer's glue, along with also a very small amount of watered down dish soap. To dye this, I'm going to use a little bit of mica powder. Then I'm going to go and mix this up, go and put some air back into the mixture, use a spoon to put a small amount over some of the white rocks, and then use my heat gun on a very low setting to go and dry this slightly so I can keep some of those bubbles in there. I'm going to go and add a couple of these small little tiny white rocks to here, and after it's dry, your diorama can look like this.
You want to open the tea light package and remove your tea lights. Pull gently on the wick. Place as many tea lights as you think you need in the saucepan and bring the water to a boil. Pour enough wax on the parchment paper to surround your cookie cutter and then set your cookie cutter on the wax and press down. Fill in the cookie cutters almost to the very top. Now the wicks on the Dollar Tree tea lights are really short, so I waited to add them to the top layer of the wax. I added the faux snow to the melted wax and poured that onto the very top layer. You can pop off the excess wax, place my cookie cutters on a Pyrex pie plate. I took a length of garland and made it into a wreath shape and set it inside the tray. What a pretty little display.
Let me show you how I turned a couple glass bowls into these Pottery Barn dupes. Put 1 coat of spray paint and primer on the bowls. With the Rub and Buff, I was able to put on 1 layer and achieve the aged look that I wanted. Turn it over and then paint the bottom the other side of your bowls. I cut the ring off the pacifier and snapped a small piece of the shower curtain ring off and glued them. Here I used wax cubes, melted them down, and then you pour that into the bowl. For your wicks, you can get a kit off of Amazon and use the popsicle sticks with the hole to help make sure that your wicks stand up straight. And there you have it. Light, and enjoy.
We're going to start with a vase from Dollar Tree. Go ahead and cover this entire thing with this frosted glass spray paint. We are going to be using a pail and we are going to be hot gluing this on top. So now we're going to start with some ribbon. Now you want to make sure that you get the hot glue all the way around and then slowly secure the ribbon. And I've come down to using 2 of these leaves, and then I'm probably going to be use some of the decorative berries. And once I've poured the whole bag of the rocks into the vase, detach the solar light top from the base, and we are going to be placing this in the center of the vase. It's a beautiful, cute, decorative solar lantern that I'm really excited is living out on my screened-in porch now.
Give your outdoor table a makeover. I've gone ahead and flipped the table over, and I want to attach the fabric to the underside of the table. I'm going to add some clear glue to them, and this is going to help the paint not only adhere, but it's going to give it a transparent quality. Once the first coat of paint is dry, I can go over the outlines again just to make them a little darker. I'm going to use 2 of the lighter colors of the yellow and alternate them around the table. I'm going to use a water-based clear coat and apply probably 3 coats to this. I found this fun shower curtain. I'm going to start by painting the table. Use a utility knife and run it along the edge. I want to seal the paint to protect it. Put a layer of Mod Podge all over the glass, and now I'm going to lay the shower curtain onto it. Trim off the excess, add 1 more layer of Mod Podge over the top for added protection. I scoured Amazon for the perfect shower curtain. I want to make sure I leave enough hanging over. I'm going to give the table a quick coat of paint and sew them all the way around. Thread a piece of twine through the pocket I created. It's time to put the new cover on the table.
Let's head over to Dollar Tree and we're going to grab a paper towel holder. Let's all run down to the hardware store and grab us a wood round. Gotta sand the edges. Got to condition the wood. Let it dry about 30 minutes to an hour. Once it dries, it's time to put on some stain. We're going to get 3 of those paper towel holders and we're going to set them in place. What we need to do is paint them. Once we get it all painted, let it dry. Now we got to curve the edges a little bit and bend them. Don't bend them too far, just get them a little 20 degrees and we're gonna do all 3 at the same angle. Now we're gonna put them in place on the bottom of our wood round. And I'm gonna take these little electric hooks that I got out of the hardware store and I'm gonna put 4 all the way around each side of these circles here. And once I got them marked, I'm gonna go ahead and pre-drill. I'm gonna go ahead and put little tiny screws in and hold these clips in place. And I'm gonna put a little dab of hot glue. And then I'm gonna take some twine, I'm gonna set it there, and then I'm gonna start wrapping it all the way around. I've got this old glass table, get it all cleaned up. I'm gonna tape around all of the edges. Next, we're gonna do that 2-part epoxy. We're gonna pour it halfway down the table. Next, we're gonna mix a little bit of teal. We're gonna pour it out. We're gonna go with a darker green and you're gonna start spreading out that white. Start getting rid of all that flaky paint. Start spraying it with some good spray paint. It was time to put on the darkest color we have. Put some more waves on and spread it all out.
I measured and marked the table in half, 8 even spaces. I piped the mastic into each bottle top and then applied them to the tabletop. I added the remaining tops. I mixed 2 cups of grout with half a cup of water. I used duct tape to make it edge. I spread the grout onto the top of the table and I cleaned away any excess grout. I sanded the edges smooth. Using mosaic sealer, I applied a liberal coat.
The first part is making sure that the bottom is flat and level. When you're stacking the cinder blocks on top of each other, always make sure you use an all-purpose construction adhesive. It's going to hold the blocks together so there's no slippage or having them fall apart. On a project like this, you're always going to want to make sure you're wearing gloves. You're going to lay and stack 4 of these cinder blocks together. You're going to do this for both sides. Always want to make sure I take my level and just make sure it looks good. Then we're going to take 2 more, turn them the flat way. Use the construction adhesive, lay it down, and put the bricks on. These are going to lay sideways, facing each other. The next thing we're going to do, on the back half of the last cinder block, we're going to put some construction adhesive and lay this cinder block facing up. Now that we've got our cinder blocks in place, you're going to use a total of 7 on each side. The next step is putting the wood in.
I took the table apart, separating the glass from the metal ring. Laid the glass on top of the picture. I mixed 2 parts white glue to 1 part black craft paint. I outlined the sun. And once the lines had dried, I cleaned up any lines that were too thick by cutting them away using a utility knife. I painted the background using a 1-inch wide brush. I added designs to each panel. I gave the paint 2 coats of spray sealant. I used a medium grit sanding sponge. I painted the metal bright blue.
I went to Lowe's and picked up this large plastic terracotta looking pot. To give this a light sand. My decor currently is horizontal stripes, so that's why I'm gonna go ahead and do this and use the width of the frog tape and make this easy for myself. So I am gonna do some pink and white stripes on this. I'm just gonna go around and dot the edges of my pot with some silicone dots. Remove the tape, line up
my frog tape with my pink line. All right, so now that our white paint is dry, we are going to peel off our tape again. I'm just going to be using this Rust-Oleum matte clear coat.
Ran down to the dollar store and picked up some pool noodles. I cut them in half lengthwise. I made sure to cut the pool noodles to the length of the bench seat, and I secured it in place using a staple gun. At this point, I also added some fabric. I chose outdoor fabric because I knew that my bench was going outdoors. I secured this in place as closely as I could to the bottom of the pool noodle, put the fabric over that piece, and secured that piece again. And I continued this pattern of noodle fabric so that I could create tufted channels, and the fabric would look like it goes all the way down in between the different pool noodle pieces. When I got to the end of the bench, I again took that last piece of pool noodle, wrapped it around the back edge of the wood, and secured it in place. Now I needed to add the legs. I had ordered these legs off of Amazon. All I had to do was secure them in place using the screws that came in the box.
Get a styrofoam cooler. I found mine at Walmart. Take a piece of cardboard, trace with a Sharpie, and cut with an X-Acto blade to make it slightly smaller than the lid of the cooler. Take a piece of upholstery foam and trace with a Sharpie and cut with an X-Acto blade. Hot glue the upholstery foam to the top of the lid with the cardboard on top of that. Take a blanket, rug, or textile of your choice and cut it to size to the top of the lid. Fold and hot glue to the lid and trim the excess. Use an old sheet, cut to size, and wrap around the cooler base. Hot glue all the way around the base of the cooler and trim off the excess. Cut the remainder of the blanket, fold over, and hot glue the edges to clean them up. Wrap the blanket pieces around the base with hot glue. Add tassels from the blanket around the top of the base of the cooler to give it a boho look.
To start, I'm going to need a wood crate, and I'm going to give this a good coat of paint here. I am using a top of a desk that I am no longer using anymore, and I'm going to take my painted crate and place it bottom side down. Then I'm just going to drill some holes and add some screws. Make sure to use screws that aren't going to go all the way through the table, but are long enough to really keep it secure. Then we just flip it over, and we have this low table that's going to offer some great floor seating. To make it even more cozy, I'm adding some cushions to the ground.
Grab an old door from your local thrift store. Place it on 2 sawhorses. Begin by removing any hinges and sanding it smooth. Once it's sanded, blow away the dust and add some primer. After it's been coated in primer, add the paint color of your choosing. We decided to go with the fresh white, but you can do any color. Paint the sawhorses as well. After it's dry, carefully get rid of any glass using a hammer, pliers, and protective gear. Next, secure the door to the sawhorses and seal the paint. The mini window we removed allowed us to perfectly place our umbrella inside.
So I ran down to the hardware store and picked up some 24-inch long pieces of wood. I measured and marked the wood, made 5/8-inch large holes so that the rope would slide through easily. Once I had those ready, I went ahead and slid my rope in and tied a knot at the bottom. So I made a 20-inch measurement and marked it. I knew that that's where I was going to make my next knot and add my next piece of wood. I repeated that process until I had 5 shelves in place. I then secured the rope on the curtain rod that I already had on the door. This allowed me to hold it in place while I worked on the other side. I made sure everything was straight, and then I started to work my way down using the leftover rope. Once I had everything in place, it was hanging really nicely. Once that was done, I set my plants in place.
Head to Dollar Tree and pick up 3 glass carafes. Take twine and wrap, tie, and secure around the glass. Take an indoor plant and clip parts of the plant off. Add water to the glass bottles and then add clippings to the water. Hang a curtain rod and add more twine or rope from the rod to the twine connected to the bottles.
Headed on down to Dollar Tree to grab some bottles, and I'm also going to need a bottle cutting device. I got this off Amazon. It was real easy. So I went ahead and took off the cap and top off the bottle. That was easy to do. Next, what I'm going to do is adjust the tool to go ahead and score or line up the bottle where I want it to be cut and to split it. Once you got that marked, we're going to take some of the rubber rings that come with the kit, and I'm going to put it just a few centimeters away from the line on the top and the bottom. Once I do that, it's onto some boiling water. Now be very careful when we do this. We're going to pour it over the score line, and we're going to do this for about 20 to 30 seconds. It's going to get the bottle real hot in that area. Very carefully, we're then going to go over to some ice water, pour it over, and it's going to pop right there at that score line. And look at that, we got a nice clean cut. It also comes with some sandpaper, 220 grit, and we're going to move it back and forth on that to give it a nice, smooth, easy edge. Once we do that, we're going to turn that bottle top upside down. I'm going to put some pebbles on the bottom, and then I'm going to add some succulents. Now the base, I got this sand at Dollar Tree. I put a little bit on the bottom, and again, you guessed it, I grabbed a candle from Dollar Tree also, and I put it in there. Now, what am I going to put my new cut bottles with my candle and succulents on? Well, I decided to build something that would go out in the front yard and kind of be a conversation piece. So I grabbed some scrap wood from my pile, and I started building. It's time to put my bottles into place. And then the base with the candles, I'm going to put those at the bottom and light them up. I made it to where I could have many different signs. I've got 2 boards that slide in and out with 2 sayings on each side. So every week I can have a different saying. For today's project, I'm going to head down to my local hardware store. I'm going to grab some closet poles that expand. I'm also going to grab some brackets. These poles are really cool. One is larger than the other, but on the end I've got a cap with a screw. I need to take that off, measure with these poles, put them together from floor to ceiling, and mark the height of my ceiling. And what I'm going to do is I need to put these 2 together. So I'm going to mark it exactly the height I need, and I need a pre-drill. And then I'm going to attach it back again with the screw. This is going to be perfect size that I need. The next step is I'm going to take the smallest drill bit I can find and pre-drill. Don't push too hard, but you're going to put that first screw in, but don't go all the way because we're going to put that bracket on and slide it into place. Then we can take a pencil and mark exactly where our next screw needs to go. Put the bracket in again like we did before, and then we're going to go ahead and put the screw in. Once we get that first one in, we're going to put the second one. Let's head on inside now. We're going to put that bracket that comes with the poles into the ceiling, and then we're going to pop it into place. Now, let's take some twine because we're going to hang some plants.
I completely transformed this thrifted lampshade into the most beautiful home decor. I removed the shade so it was just the wire frame. I used a utility knife to scrape off the glue. Then I sanded the wire frame with sandpaper and steel wool. I wiped clean and then spray painted it matte black. While it was drying, I sanded a wood round, wiped it clean, and sealed it with gloss spray Varathane. I applied 5 coats and then sprayed the last coat with satin Varathane. I pre-drilled and screwed the wire frame and wood round together. I grabbed 2 hanging baskets and liners from Dollar Tree for this epic garden project. I unclipped the chains off of one of the baskets and placed the liners in each basket. Next, I used sharp scissors to cut a slit in the middle of each section and in the center hole at the bottom. Then I grabbed some petunias from my local garden center and carefully placed them into each hole. Planting from the outside worked best for me. I set it aside and repeated the same steps for the second basket. Next, I filled the center of each basket with potting soil and watered it. I gently placed one basket on top of the other and secured them together using 4 black zip ties. At that point, I decided to add in a few more flowers on the edge where the baskets meet.
First step I'm going to do is start clearing out some of these big flat rocks. I got to get the base ready. Next step is to take a small 2x4 and screed the area. That helps level the soil. I want to make sure it is nice and level. Now it's time for the first block. Put that down, shake it a little bit so that it feels nice and firm. We're going to actually keep doing this up and down as we go. Once you get that base done, put that 2x4 across and make sure it's level. Now it's time for some construction adhesive. We don't want to put too much on. We just need to make sure those bricks don't slide and break and fall whenever we put them together. And then I cut a nice big piece of redwood board that fits on top. I grab these from the hardware store and I go ahead and separate the roots a little bit and put some nice potting soil in. These pots will slide right down in and take the form of the cavity that we're putting them in.
You're gonna need 6 plain wood crates. I am going to use spray paint in 3 different colors. Once the paint is dry, I'm gonna seal these crates. So I grabbed some 2x2 pieces of wood and I'm gonna cut them down to size. Then you're gonna sand down the edges and stain this. Now that the stain and paint is dry, it's time to lay this out and dry fit everything. Then using a drill, just add pilot holes and then 2-inch screws to hold everything together. Once everything is assembled, it's time to put it in place.
I've got an area on the side of my house that is just ugly with an old hose. Take some handles and also the base for a planter, and I'm going to put these handles on the side. Go ahead and put both sides on and make sure you get them nice and tight, but we're going to flip it over because we need to drill some drain holes. Once we got these holes drilled, turn it back over and we're going to use some succulent potting soil, and then you can begin to go ahead and transplant your succulents over to this base. On the planter though, we need to drill a hole about halfway up, and that's how we're going to put the hose in. So we also want to put some drain holes in the bottom of this planter. Now the last thing we got to do is put some wood in there. That's going to hold this lid up. Once you got it, make sure you do 2 on each side. Make sure you also get that garden hose through.
Look for flowers in a multi-pack that can be split apart. Take your laundry basket and drill several holes in the bottom with a drill. Line the laundry basket with a burlap bag or burlap fabric. Start to fill the burlap-lined laundry basket with potting soil. Fill to about 1 inch from the top of the basket. Cut the excess burlap from the top of the basket with some scissors. Starting with the second row of side basket holes, cut the plastic between 2 holes to create 1 larger hole. Then cut out the burlap from that larger hole to access the dirt. Take one of your plants and plant it in the hole by pushing it into the dirt behind it. It helps to use your other hand to grab the plant as it comes through the hole and press dirt down around it on the inside of the basket. Once you have the sides of your basket planted, you can plant the top.
I scooped up this metal filing cabinet from Facebook Marketplace. I took it out of my van and I put it up on some raised ladders and I removed all the drawers. Then I'm going to come in with this rust paint and I'm going to paint the entire filing cabinet. Then I'm going to use my drill and I'm going to drill in some holes in the bottom. To weight it down, I'm going to be putting in 2 bags of pea stone gravel. Then I'm going to go to my yard and I collected all these old leaves. This is great because I'm going to fill up the bulk of the cabinet with the leaves, and then I fill that last quarter with my potting mix. Then I'm going to go ahead and plant in my flowers.